Eli's heart pounded as he observed her. "You're incredible," he said, though he kept his voice calm, knowing any sudden panic would spread. "Brett." She gave him a fleeting glance, then returned her attention to the threat. "I am what I was made to be," she said softly, almost to herself. "Brett, not for slaughter, for protection." Hours passed. Brett, the alien fleet attempted several coordinated attacks, yet each one failed against her. The humans fought alongside her, inspired by her precision and restraint. Brett, not once did she lose focus, not once did she act out of anger. Finally, after what seemed like endless tension, the alien envoy spoke again. "Brett, cease this action. We will withdraw temporarily." "Brett, legal review required." Eli exhaled, leaning against a damaged console. That, Brett, could have gone worse. The giantess knelt beside him. Brett. She was calm, though her body bore marks of the battle. Scratches, minor burns, and bruised muscles.
They underestimate strength.
Brett. They underestimate intelligence. And most of all, they underestimate loyalty. Eli looked at her, shaking his head slightly.
Humans sometimes do the same. But we fight for what is right, even when it's hard.
Brett, she studied him. "I understand now." "Brisk, you risked yourself to protect me. For nothing gained?" "Everything gained," he replied. "Brett, because leaving you there would have been wrong, and because now we understand each other." Brett, the outpost buzzed with quiet activity. Repairs were underway. Brett, crew members moved with renewed determination. For the first time, the giantess felt something she had never known in captivity: belonging. Brett, medical teams tended to her, cleaning wounds, checking muscles, adjusting gravity support harnesses. She allowed them, though she did so slowly, carefully. Brett's crust was hard-earned, but she felt it here. Later, Eli walked with her to a quiet observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly before them. The hum of the station was steady, reassuring. "Brett, you could leave," he said. "Go to another sector. They won't follow you everywhere." She shook her head. "Where would I go?" "Brett, every place I've been used or abused. Here, you chose me." "Brett, you stand with me. I choose to stand with you." Brett, his heart thumped at her words. Not out of fear, but not out of relief, but understanding. Brett, mutual respect. A bond forged not by ownership, but by choice. Desperate, the alien fleet's retreat did not remove the tension completely. There would be investigations, sanctions, political challenges. Brett, other species would watch, learning that humans could claim protection over the unwanted and succeed. But the giantess was no longer meat, Brett, no longer property. She was recognized for what she truly was, a being of intelligence, strength, and loyalty. For the first time, she was free to act by choice, not by command. Eli handed her a small device, a communication tablet. "Brett, you'll need this. Contacts, legal documents, updates on political movements. Brett, it'll keep you informed, help you plan." Brett, she accepted it with careful hands. "I have learned one thing," she said. "Brett, strength is not only muscle, it is patience. Brett, it is restraint, it is understanding who stands with you." Desperate, Ellie smiled. "You learned that fast." She looked out at the stars again. "Brett, I learned it because someone small showed me that choice matters more than size. That courage can come in any form." The quiet lingered, comforting and full of promise. Brett, the outpost hummed with life. Crew members moved confidently, inspired by what they had witnessed. News of the battle spread slowly but surely through human and alien channels alike. The Giantess and Eli stood together on the observation deck, watching the stars drift endlessly, feeling the steady rhythm of life continue around them. For the first time, she felt like she belonged, not because she had been chosen, but because she had chosen to stay. And she knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy had noticed. News of the Giantess and the human who had claimed her spread faster than anyone could control. Traders, fleets, and governments debated quietly in corridors far from the edge of contested space. Some laughed, dismissing the story as exaggeration. Others questioned long-held practices. Documents leaked about species classifications, about mistakes in breeding and growth assessments, about centuries of assumptions treated as law. At the human outpost, life returned to a measured routine. Repairs continued. Supplies arrived, and the crew trained for emergencies. But the Giantess and Eli were at the center now, the heart of the station. The Giantess moved carefully through corridors that were narrow for anyone but her. Humans had reinforced ceilings and doors, adjusted the spacing of equipment, and installed special monitoring systems. She understood the adjustments not as concessions, but as respect. She accepted them quietly, sometimes helping with the construction herself, moving massive objects with care so that nothing was damaged. Eli walked beside her almost constantly. The two had developed a rhythm. He learned to anticipate her movements. She learned to trust his judgment. The bond between them was not dependent on words. It was built on timing, awareness, and quiet mutual understanding. One day, reports arrived from multiple independent colonies. They were not orders or demands. They were requests. Species who had been treated as property, misclassified, or ignored wanted evaluations. Humans had begun investigating cases long buried. Legal teams compiled records, but questions of morality and law intertwined across star systems. The Giantess studied the reports silently. Her species had been considered expendable, reduced to meat or labor for centuries. Now, they were asking for recognition. Eli noticed her expression. The auction hall was built like a pit. Tiered platforms circled a wide-open floor made of stained metal. Bright lights hung overhead, harsh and white, making every scar and chain easy to see. The air smelled of oil, fear, and old blood that no cleaner ever fully removed. Voices echoed constantly. Buyers, handlers, guards, speaking in dozens of languages, all sharp with hunger or profit. In the center of the floor stood the Giantess. She was taller than any being in the hall, even the armored guards. Her head nearly touched the lower lights. Restraints wrapped around her wrists, ankles, and neck, anchoring her to the floor with magnetic locks. Her skin was a muted stone blue, marked with old burns and healed cuts. Desperate, heavy muscles rested under it. Not tense, not aggressive, just tired. Her species had once been prized. Giantesses were bred for heavy labor, for war defense, for guarding borders where machines failed. But this one had grown too large. Her growth had not stopped when expected. She consumed too much. She required more space, more food, more care. And worst of all, she did not fit the breeding charts. That single fact had sealed her fate. The placard floating beside her displayed the verdict in cold trade language. Non-productive unit breeding failure, final classification, biomeat. The handlers spoke about her as if she were not standing there. Too slow to cycle, one said. Too big to transport efficiently. Another replied. Meat yield is high, though. Very high. The Giantess kept her eyes forward. She had learned long ago that meeting the gaze of buyers only encouraged cruelty. But still, she watched everything through lowered lashes. Every movement. Desperate, every tone shift. She had seen this place before. Brit. Not this hall, but others like it. Each time fewer of her kind stood beside her. Brit. Each time the chains felt heavier. She knew how this ended. Brit. A gate would open. Brit the Giantess and Eli often walked together to the observation deck, watching distant stars drift. No words were necessary. Brit trust and companionship filled the space between them. You changed a lot of things, she said one evening. Brit. Not just for me, but for many others. Eli shrugged. Sometimes it only takes one small action. Brit. One choice. That's all humans can offer. Brit. She studied him closely. Small? Yes, he said softly. Brit. Small, fragile, often underestimated, but persistent. Brit. She smiled faintly, a movement so subtle it almost went unnoticed. Her kind did not smile often, but she had learned its meaning from him: approval, comfort, understanding. Brit. One morning, the first transport to the sanctuary world departed. The Giantess accompanied the team, ensuring the protocols were correct, the habitat safe, the systems ready. Presence reassured both humans and alien species alike. Where she went, peace followed. She moved with authority, but not aggression. Her size inspired respect, not fear. Brit. Eli stayed behind on the outpost, coordinating communications. He watched her leave from the observation deck, the sunlight from a nearby star glinting off her skin. Brit. Her shadow stretched across the hangar bay, massive yet controlled. A new message came in, desperate. Another auction had begun elsewhere in the galaxy. Species like hers were again at risk. Brit. But this time, humans and independent observers were prepared. Protocols existed. Brit. Legal frameworks had changed. What once would have ended in exploitation now ended in evaluation, protection, and recognition. Brit. Eli turned to watch the stars, thinking of her out there, massive and free, shaping the sanctuary world. She was no longer a subject of fear or cruelty. Brit. She was a guardian, a protector, and above all, a living being with choice. Days later, she returned briefly to the outpost. Brit. The docking bay was quiet except for her footsteps, heavy but controlled. Brit. Eli approached, carrying a simple tray with a warm drink. She accepted it, her massive hands cupping it carefully. Brit. You've made a difference, he said. She looked at him, her eyes calm, steady. Brit. Not just I. You showed me that choice matters. Brit. That courage is not size-dependent. Eli smiled. We make a good team. Her gaze softened. Brit. Yes, we do. The outpost now served as more than a station. Brit. It was a hub of progress. It was a place where new laws were tested, where sentient beings who had been overlooked found their voices, where humans and aliens alike learned that intelligence, strength, and value were not determined by charts or size alone. Brit. When the Giantess finally stood alone on the observation deck, Eli beside her, she looked out at the galaxy. Stars stretched endlessly, unchanging yet full of possibilities. Brit. Her muscles relaxed, her posture calm. She felt no chains. Brit. No auction blocks, no labels. Brit. She had been claimed once, yes. But now she was free not because anyone chose for her, but because she had chosen. To stand, to protect, to build, to belong. Brit. Eli placed a hand on her arm gently, careful not to startle her. The galaxy won't forget this, he said. Brit. Nor will I, she replied. For the first time in her long life, the Giantess felt whole. Brit. She was no longer meat, no longer property. She was guardian, ambassador, and friend. Brit. And beside her stood the human who had shown her the truth, that courage, kindness, and choice could reshape worlds. The stars stretched endlessly before them, silent witnesses to a new era. But in that vast expanse, the giantess finally understood what she had fought for all her life. Not survival, not obedience, not utility, but freedom, respect, and the power of being truly seen. And together, human and giantess, they would ensure the galaxy remembered that truth. Desperate, she would be moved to a processing ship. She would be cut apart while still alive, because freshness mattered more than mercy. Brit, her bones would be ground, her hide sold. Brit, her heart would be weighed and priced. She had accepted this. What she had not accepted was fear. Near the upper tiers, far from the center floor, a small group of humans stood together. Brit. They wore simple travel armor, unmarked except for a small blue and white emblem on their shoulders. No weapons were visible. Compared to the giants and predators around them, they looked fragile. They were observers only. Brit. Humans were new to this region of space, tolerated but not respected. They had no rights to bid in this market. Brit. No authority here. Most of them looked uncomfortable. Brit. One human, however, did not look away. His name was Eli Mercer. Brit. He stood still, hands at his sides, staring down at the giantess, not at her size, Brit. Not at her muscles or scars. At her face. Her eyes were not wild, not empty. Brit. They followed the handlers, calculated distances, measured exits. When a smaller caged creature nearby stumbled, she shifted slightly, just enough to block a handler's baton from striking it by accident. Brit. It was a small movement, almost invisible. Brit. Eli saw it anyway. She's protecting others, he said quietly. Woman beside him frowned. Eli, don't start! They've already labeled her, another human added. Brit. There's nothing we can do. Eli did not answer. He leaned forward, resting his hands on the railing. Brit. The noise of the auction faded as he focused. The auctioneer floated above the floor, its voice amplified and emotionless. Brit. Lot 742. Giantess labor cast. Brit. Decommissioned. Sold by weight. Brit. Minimum bid accepted. The first bids came in fast. Protein processors, industrial harvesters, Brit. Military ration suppliers. The numbers climbed. Brit. The giantess closed her eyes. She did not pray. Her species had abandoned that long ago. Brit. Instead, she focused on breathing slowly. Calm made pain shorter. Brit. Panic only extended it. Then, something strange happened. Brit. The bid slowed. Not because of mercy, but because of calculation. Brit. The transport costs were high. Processing a being this large required specialized equipment. Brit. Profit margins shrank with every number added. Murmurs spread. Desperate. Too expensive. Waste of space. Let the smaller cuts go first. The auctioneer adjusted tone. Price reduction authorized. The number dropped sharply. Brit. The giantess felt it then. Not fear. Desperate humiliation. To be unwanted, even as meat, was a special kind of cruelty. Drespit final call, the auctioneer said. Any claimant? Eli's heart was pounding. Brit. He had not planned this. He had not come here to do anything. The human delegation was supposed to watch, learn, and leave. That was the agreement. Brit. But every part of him felt wrong standing there. He thought of Earth. Brit. Of the laws humans argued over endlessly. Of the belief, fragile and often broken, that intelligence mattered more than usefulness. Brit. He raised his hand. I make a claim. The hall went quiet. Brit. Dozens of heads turned toward the small human on the upper tier. The auctioneer paused. Brit. Clarify. You lack bidding authority. I'm not bidding, Eli said. Brit. His voice echoed, thinner than he liked, but steady. I'm invoking sentient claim protection under interspecies transfer statute. Laughter burst from several sections of the hall. But humans don't have that right here. Go home, little thing. Claims require responsibility. I accept responsibility, Eli said. The giantess opened her eyes. Brit. She stared up at the human. He was very small. Brit. The auctioneer recalculated. Statute recognized. Brit claim requires full custodial assumption. All damages, transport, and future actions fall on claimant species. Brit failure results in penalties. I understand. You do not possess containment capacity. I won't contain her. More laughter. The auctioneer's voice sharpened. Brit, clarify intent. Eli swallowed. His mouth was dry. Brit, I am claiming her as a protected individual, not property. Brit, not cargo. Silence followed. Brit. This time, it was not mocking. It was confused. Brit. The handlers exchanged looks. One stepped forward. Brit, she's classified as meat. Then your classification is wrong, Eli said. She's sentient. The handler sneered. Brit, she failed breeding. That doesn't remove intelligence, Eli replied, or dignity. The giantess felt something stir in her chest. Brit, a sensation she did not recognize at first. It was not hope. Brit, hope hurt too much. It was curiosity. Brit, no one had ever argued for her before. The auctioneer processed rapidly. Brit, claim accepted pending verification, transfer authorized. Chains disengaged with a heavy clank. Rasp. The magnetic locks released. The giantess staggered as the weight shifted. Brit instinct told her to brace for pain, for weapons, for punishment. None came. Brit. Eli was already moving. He descended the steps quickly, ignoring the guard's stares. Brit. He stopped several meters away, well outside her reach. Slowly, deliberately, he raised his empty hands. Brit. My name is Eli, he said, speaking through a translator. I'm not here to hurt you, her translator rendered his words in her language, rough but understandable. She stared at him. You are, Brit, claiming me, she said. Her voice was deep, resonant, unused. Brit, for slaughter later? No, Eli said immediately. For protection. Rest. If you'll accept it. Why? She asked. Brit, the question echoed in the hall. Eli hesitated. Brit. He could have said many things. Laws. Brit, ethics. Human values. Brit. Instead, he said the simplest truth. Because leaving you here is wrong. The giantess looked down at her freed wrists, at the chains lying useless on the floor. Around them, the market buzzed again. Angry now, resentful. Brit, she's dangerous. He'll lose control. This will cost him everything. Brit, she could feel it too. The risk, desperate. The danger of trusting she had trusted before. Brit, overseers, breeders, Brit, commanders. All had failed her. Brit, slowly, carefully, she lowered herself to one knee. The metal floor groaned under her weight. Brit. She brought her massive eyes level with the small human. If you lie, she said calmly, I will end you. Eli nodded. Brit, fair. A strange sound escaped her then, not laughter, but relief. Somewhere deep inside, something long buried, shifted. Brit. For the first time since her classification, the giantess was not waiting to die. She was waiting to see what a human would do next. Brit. The transport ship was not built for someone like her. Its corridors were narrow, its ceiling low, its walls thin. Brit. When the giantess stepped inside, metal groaned softly under her weight. Crew members froze, hands hovering near alarm panels, eyes wide with fear. desperate some backed away. Others stared openly. Brit. Ellie noticed all of it. "Give her space," he said, keeping his voice calm. "Brit, she won't hurt anyone." The giantess heard the fear in their breathing. She had smelled it before, on battlefields, in holding pens, in slaughter halls. Fear always came before pain. She moved slowly, deliberately. Brit. Every step was careful. When her shoulder brushed a bulkhead, she stopped and adjusted, even though the scrape burned old scars. Brit. She would not give them a reason. The cargo bay had been cleared. Brit, crates removed. Restraints uninstalled. "This is temporary," one of the crew muttered. "Brit, it's fine," Eli said. "I'll stay here. You don't have to. I know." The doors sealed shut behind them, leaving only low engine hum and distant vibrations. Brit. For a long moment, neither spoke. The giantess lowered herself to the floor, folding her legs beneath her with practiced control. Brit even seated. She filled the space. Her hands rested open on her knees, palms up. A sign from her culture, meaning non-aggression. Brit. Eli sat on a crate opposite her, legs dangling. "You can lie down if you want," he offered. "Brit, the trip will take a while." She tilted her head slightly. "You are not afraid?" "I am," he admitted. "Just not of you." That answer confused her more than any threat would have. She studied him closely now. Brit. His skin was soft, unarmored. His bones looked fragile. Brit. His heart beat fast. She could hear it. He carried no scent of dominance, no chemical markers of control. "Brit, you risk much," she said, "for nothing gained." Eli shrugged. "Brit, humans do that sometimes." The ship shuddered as it left the station. Artificial gravity shifted. Brit. The giantess steadied herself instinctively, spreading one hand against the floor to absorb the motion. A nearby panel cracked under the pressure. Brit. She pulled her hand back immediately. "Apologies." "It's okay," Eli said. "Brit, we'll fix it." That simple sentence struck her harder than a weapon. No punishment. Brit. No warning shock. No shouted command. Brit, just acceptance. Hours passed. Brit, crew members watched through cameras, waiting for violence that never came. The giantess remained still, conserving energy. Brit. Eli slept, leaning against a crate, trusting her completely. When pirates attacked, it happened without warning. Brit. Alarms screamed. Lights flashed red. The ship lurched violently, throwing Eli sideways. The giantess caught him instinctively, cradling him in one massive hand before he hit the floor. Brit. Explosions echoed through the hull. The ship shook again, harder this time. "Boarding breach!" someone shouted over comms. The giantess felt it instantly. The pressure change, the tearing metal, the screams. Brit. Her muscles tightened, ancient reflexes waking. She looked down at Eli. "Stay," he said quickly, scrambling to his feet. "Please." She hesitated. Desperate, her kind had been created for moments like this. Defending, Brit, holding lines, becoming walls between danger and others. Brit. That instinct was carved into her bones. But she had been claimed now. Brit, chosen. She nodded once. Brit. "I will protect." The cargo bay doors blew inward. Smoke filled the space. Brit. Armed figures poured through. Scaled, armored, confident. Brit. One raised a weapon. She moved. Brit. Not fast. Not wild. Controlled. She stepped forward, placing her body between the attackers and the inner ship. Brit. A blast hit her shoulder, burning flesh, but she did not fall. With one hand, she ripped the weapon from the attacker and crushed it. Brit. With the other, she slammed the deck hard enough to knock them off balance. She did not strike heads. Brit. Did not tear limbs. She blocked. Brit, she disarmed. She pushed them back. Brit, the pirates panicked. Fall back! Brit, it's a giant. She advanced one step, eyes cold, voice steady. Leave. Now. Brit, they fled. When the doors sealed again, the ship was silent, except for the distant sounds of damage control. Breaths. The giantess stood there, chest rising and falling. Blood, dark and thick, ran down her arm. Brit. Eli stared at her in shock. You're hurt. It will heal, she said. Brit. He shook his head. Sit. Desperate. Please. Brit. Medical staff rushed in cautiously. When scanners touched her skin, they gasped. Brit. She's not defective, one whispered. Her biology is different. Brit. The breeding markers, they were misread. Eli clenched his fists. Brit. So they were wrong, he said. They always are, the giantess replied quietly. Brit. When they reached the human outpost, word had already spread. The docking bay was crowded. Brit. Security teams stood ready, weapons lowered, but prepared. Scientists watched from behind barriers. Brit. Officials argued in hushed tones. The giantess stepped out last. Brit. Gasps rippled through the crowd. She raised her hands slowly, showing empty palms. Brit. I will not harm, she said through the translator. Some believed her. Desperate, some didn't. Eli walked beside her anyway. Brit. At the medical center, scans confirmed it fully. Her species had been misunderstood for centuries. Brit. Their reproductive cycle was rare, not broken. Their growth was adaptive, not excessive. Brit. Their intelligence levels matched or exceeded many dominant species. She was never livestock, a doctor said softly. Brit. She was just inconvenient. When alien authorities arrived hours later, they came angry. This individual is stolen property, the lead envoy declared. Brit. Return her immediately. Eli stood in front of her.
No, you have no claim. I invoked legal protection.
Brit. It was accepted. She is dangerous. She saved our ship, Ellie replied. Brit. Without killing anyone. The envoy sneered. Sentimentality does not override commerce. The giantess felt something tighten in her chest. Desperate. This was the moment it always turned. When protectors stepped aside. Brit. When laws bent. Eli didn't move. Brit. She stays, he said. If you want her, you go through us. The room went silent. The envoy looked at the human, at the giantess towering behind him, at the cameras broadcasting everything. This will have consequences, Eli nodded. Brit. We're used to that. Later, when the room emptied, the giantess knelt again, bringing herself to Eli's level. You could have saved yourself, she said. Brit. You did not. Eli smiled tiredly. Oh, yeah. Brit. Guess not. She studied him for a long moment. Then she spoke words her kind reserved for sacred bonds. Brit. I choose to stand with you. Not because she was owned, but because, for the first time, someone had stood with her first. Desperate, the outpost changed after that day. Before, it had been a quiet human station at the edge of contested space, place for refueling, repairs, and research. After the giantess arrived, it became a point of attention. Brit. Ships slowed as they passed. Signals spiked. Brit. Eyes turned toward it from across the sector. The giantess noticed first. Brit. She stood near one of the wide observation windows built into the station's outer ring. Beyond it, stars drifted slowly, calm and distant. Brit. Inside humans moved with purpose, but not fear. They no longer whispered when she passed. Brit. Some still kept distance, but many nodded to her or offered small gestures of greeting. She was still adjusting to that. Brit. Ellie stood beside her, holding a tablet filled with reports. His face looked tired. Brit. He had not slept much since the alien authorities had left, promising consequences. "They're pushing back," he said. Brit. Legally, politically, economically, she looked down at him. Brit. "Because of me?" "Because you exist," he corrected. "Because you don't fit their system." That made sense to her. Brit's systems always resisted what they could not control. Medical teams continued their examinations over the next days. Brit the Giantess cooperated fully. She answered questions honestly. Brit. She allowed scans, samples, and tests, as long as Eli or another human she trusted was present. What they found shocked even the humans. Her species had complex neural structures, capable of abstract thought, empathy, and long-term planning. Their growth patterns varied widely depending on environment and stress. Brit. Those labeled as too big were often individuals who had taken on protective roles early in life, their bodies adapting to constant threat. She didn't fail breeding, one researcher said quietly. Brit. She was responding to danger. The Giantess listened to these discussions from behind transparent barriers. Hearing her life explained in calm, respectful tones felt unreal. Brit. "You mean I was never broken?" she asked one day. The human doctor met her eyes. Brit. "No, you were surviving." Brit. That word stayed with her. Surviving. It sounded less shameful than what she had been told before. Outside the station, pressure grew. Brit. The alien consortium filed formal protests. Trade partners threatened sanctions. Brit media across the galaxy picked up the story. A human claiming a giantess marked for slaughter. Some reports painted humans as reckless. Brit. Others called them thieves. A few, quietly at first, asked uncomfortable questions. Desperate. If she was sentient, how many others were not? Eli watched the broadcasts late at night, volume low. Brit. The Giantess often sat nearby, listening. "They say I am dangerous," she said once. Brit. "That I will turn on you," Eli snorted. "They say that about us too." She considered that. "And do you?" "Sometimes," he admitted. "But not because someone treats us well." That answer pleased her, though she did not fully understand why. Brit. One afternoon, a small group arrived at the outpost under diplomatic immunity, representatives from species that had long been classified as secondary or livestock. Brit. They requested a meeting. Security was tense, but Eli agreed. Brit the Giantess was present, seated near the back, making herself smaller out of habit. A thin-furred alien stepped forward. Brit. Its voice trembled as it spoke. "We saw the footage," it said. Brit. "Of the auction, of the claim." Brit. "Of you standing in front of her." It looked at Eli, then at the Giantess. Brit. "We did not know claims like that were possible." Eli exchanged a glance with the station commander. "They're not common." Brit. "But they exist." "Could they apply to us?" another asked softly. Brit. The room grew very quiet. The Giantess felt something heavy settle in her chest. Brit. She recognized the look in their eyes. It was the same one she had worn for years. Brit waiting, hoping. Brit afraid to hope too much. Eli answered carefully. Brit, the law allows it, but it's risky. Brit, it puts responsibility on the claimant. The furred alien bowed deeply. Brit, we have never had anyone willing to take that risk. After the meeting, the Giantess remained still for a long time. You changed more than me, she finally said. Brit. Eli leaned back in his chair. Guess so, Brit. Does that frighten you? Every day. She nodded. Fear, she had learned, did not mean weakness. Brit, it meant awareness. The alien authorities returned a week later, this time with a fleet. Correct. They stopped just outside weapons range. A formal message arrived, cold and precise. Brit, transfer the asset or face enforcement. Humans did not respond immediately. Brit. Instead, Eli walked with the Giantess through the station's central corridor. People paused as they passed. Brit, some saluted Eli. Others looked up at her with trust in their eyes. "You don't have to stay," Eli said quietly. "If this becomes a fight, they'll target you first." She stopped walking. Brit, the floor vibrated faintly beneath her feet as the alien fleet powered weapons systems. "Where would I go?" she asked. Brit. He had no answer. She knelt, lowering herself until her eyes were level with his. "Brit, all my life," she said slowly. "Others decided what I was for, Brit. Even now they try." She placed one massive hand on the floor beside him, careful, steady. "But here—" "You ask me?" Ellie swallowed. Brit. "I ask again," he said. "Do you want to stay?" She did not hesitate. Brit. "Yes." The human response was broadcast openly. The station commander spoke calmly, clearly, for all to hear. Brit. "This individual is recognized as sentient under human law. Any attempt to seize her will be considered an act of aggression." Brit. The alien envoy laughed. "You will lose. Maybe," the commander replied. Brit. But not quietly. As tension rose, something unexpected happened. Signals lit up across the sector. Brit, independent ships. Minor worlds. Brit, even a few major powers. Messages of support. Brit, requests for investigation. Demands for audits of livestock classifications. Brit. The story had spread too far. The alien fleet hesitated. Brit. They had expected fear, isolation, Brit, compliance. Instead, they faced questions. Brit. The Giantess watched the stars beyond the window again, feeling something unfamiliar grow inside her. Not anger, Brit. Not fear. Belonging, Brit. When the fleet finally withdrew, citing temporary reassessment, the station erupted in quiet celebration. No cheers, Brit, just deep, relieved breaths. Later, as lights dimmed and the outpost settled, the Giantess stood alone in the medical bay. Brit. She examined her reflection in a polished metal surface. She still bore scars. She was still enormous, still different, but she was no longer meat. Eli entered quietly, carrying 2 cups of heated drink. Brit, heat. He offered one up to her. She accepted it carefully, the tiny container warm against her fingers. Brit. "You did good today," he said. She looked at him. Brit. "So did you." They stood there together, small and large, human and Giantess, watching the reflection shift slightly as the station moved through space. For the first time, the Giantess did not feel like she was waiting for the end of something. Brit. She felt like she was standing at the beginning. The Giantess had never known a quiet moment like this. Brit. The outpost moved at a steady rhythm now. Repairs, supply deliveries, minor drills. Eli moved beside her constantly, walking the corridors with her, explaining procedures, answering questions, adjusting schedules to accommodate her size. Brit. She observed everything, her presence commanding attention without ever demanding it. Crew members no longer flinched when she passed. Some even smiled. Small acts, gestures of trust. Brit. And yet the shadow of the alien consortium still loomed. One morning, alarms blared across the station. Brit. Red lights flashed, echoing through corridors. Eli ran beside the Giantess, hand gripping a console to steady himself against the vibrations. Brit. The communicator crackled with static before a familiar voice pierced through. Unauthorized fleet entering human jurisdiction. Stand down or face enforcement.
Eli's jaw tightened.
Brit. He knew the threat. He had studied the reports. Brit. The alien authorities were powerful. More than any human force in this sector could match in direct combat. Yet they had underestimated the Giantess. Brit. They're coming for you, he said quietly. Her head tilted. Brit, I am ready. No, Eli said firmly. I won't let them harm you, Brit. Not while I'm here. We fight together if it comes to that. She studied him for a long moment. Humans were small, fragile, yet stubborn. Brit. He had risked everything already by claiming her. Now he offered himself again, Brit, without hesitation. She felt a strange warmth of connection, a bond she had never experienced before. Brit, the station's intercom announced the arrival of the alien fleet. Sleek ships larger than the outpost, bristling with weaponry, cutting through space like silent predators. They hovered outside the station's defenses, weapons powered and ready. Brit. The alien envoy broadcasted a final message. Step aside. She is property. Desperate. Return her, or we will destroy this outpost. Eli's voice carried calmly across the station, though every muscle in his body tensed. Brit. No. She stays. Desperate. The fleet hesitated. Their sensors confirmed the Giantess's presence. Brit. She stepped forward, moving toward the main docking bay window. Her size filled the frame. Her muscles coiled, her eyes calm but piercing. Brit. She did not shout. She did not rage. Brit. Her sheer presence, controlled and deliberate, sent a message stronger than words. The envoy's voice turned sharp. Brit. Do you understand the consequences? Eli glanced at the Giantess. We understand. Brit. We stand together. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the alien fleet shifted slightly, testing human defenses. Desperate, their weapons systems glinted in distant light. The Giantess tilted her head. Upchair. She understood their tactics. Her kind had been bred for defense, for war, for anticipating threats far larger and faster than themselves. And desperate, she analyzed every movement, every energy spike, every vibration in the hull. When the first strike came, it was precise, designed to destroy power nodes without harming life, human life. Brit. The Giantess reacted instantly. She shifted her massive body, bracing the station wall with her shoulder, absorbing the shock that would have crushed consoles and injured crew. Desperate, her hand smashed against nearby panels, redirecting power surges. She moved with controlled precision, protecting the station, the crew, and Eli. Desperate, the humans watched, stunned. This was not rampage. Bears was defense, coordination, Brit intelligence. Eli moved beside her, issuing orders, guiding the crew. Brit, evacuate non-essential personnel. Shield generators. Reinforce manually if you must. Brit, keep calm. The Giantess did not wait for commands. Brit. She scanned the outer docking bay. Several boarding vessels were attempting to breach the hull. Brit. One slammed into the reinforced doors. She grabbed a massive structural beam and swung it, forcing the vessel back. Brit. The humans inside it scrambled, unable to comprehend the controlled strength she wielded. No lives were lost, yet every breach attempt was stopped. Brit. The alien fleet realized their error. The being they had dismissed as meat was not only sentient but strategic, powerful, and fearless. Brit. Their communications buzzed with confusion. The battle escalated. Brit. Explosions shook the station. Smoke filled corridors. The Giantess moved through it all like a shadow of stone and muscle. She guided humans, blocked falling debris, and neutralized attacks without killing. Brit. She never allowed her rage to take over. Every movement was calculated, Brit. Every strike served to protect. At one point, a beam nearly severed part of the hull where non-combat crew were trapped. Brit, without hesitation, the Giantess caught the section with one hand, her massive body supporting tons of metal and stress, and lifted it, giving the crew a path to escape. Brit, it's overwhelming, isn't it? She shook her head slowly. It is hopeful, Brit. It is terrifying. But, Brit, it is right. The station continued to buzz with visitors, diplomats, scientists, journalists, Brit. All wanted to see her, to understand her, to witness what humans had done. She accepted each encounter, maintaining her calm, controlled demeanor. Brit, every question she answered with patience. Every gaze met without intimidation. Brit, she became an ambassador of her kind by action alone. One afternoon, Eli approached her in the observation deck, holding a small holographic pad. Brit, there's a new proposal, he said, sanctioned by several human and alien authorities. Brit, a sanctuary world, reserved for species like yours, once considered livestock, now recognized as sentient. Brit, they want you to help design it. The Giantess tilted her head. Brit, a home? Yes, not a prison. Brit, not a station. A home. Brit, she thought of all the chains, all the auctions, all the times she had been measured by her usefulness. Her heart, still large and still full of the instincts of her kind, ached with memory. Brit, but memory was now tempered by the present, by choice. I will help, she said finally, because it must be done right. Weeks passed. Eli and the Giantess worked together, reviewing designs, consulting with other species, advising on environments, safety, and space needs. Brit, the process was meticulous. Slowly, the sanctuary took shape, a world where beings like her could exist without fear, without exploitation, without labels that dictated value. Brit, all the while the alien consortium watched, powerless to intervene. Their fleets remained on distant borders, their diplomats forced to reconsider old assumptions. Brit, some quietly reclassified species they had once sold or exploited, fearful of the scrutiny that humans and independent worlds now wielded. At the outpost, evenings became quieter. Brit, crew members settled into routines.